Hey everyone, FinTech here. So Akon, the 2000 singer famous for hits such as Smack That and Don't Matter, is building a city in his part-time home country of Senegal. The entire project is estimated to cost $6 billion and will run entirely on crypto and will have buildings such as a casino and Akon Tower, which looks like a giant. But this isn't even the most ambitious city crypto project, with much bigger cities such as Miami and New York also looking at launching their own cryptocurrencies to help fund the city. So in this video, we're going to look at how Akon's Akoin cryptocurrency is going to power his idea of the future city, as well as how Miami and New York are using cryptocurrencies to help power two of the largest cities in the US. And since these are cryptos that you could invest money into, we'll also look at how good of an investment these kinds of cryptos are, and I'll tell you at the end whether or not I personally am investing in them. So hit the like button if you want, and let's get started by talking about Akon City. Now, Akon City is going to be built in Senegal, where Akon spent part of his childhood growing up. It's going to be built on 2,000 acres of what's considered unfarmable land that was previously set aside for special projects in the country. The project is being broken up into two phases. The first phase, or phase 1, is supposed to finish in 2023, and it will include all kinds of infrastructure required for the city. That includes roads, hospitals, police stations, things like that. Then there's going to be phase 2, which involves integrating the different businesses in the community into the Akoin ecosystem, essentially allowing the entire city to run on a cryptocurrency. The entire project is estimated to cost $6 billion in total, and obviously Akon isn't paying for all of that by himself. His lead investor is Julius Mwale, who previously built the Mwale Medical and Technology City for $2 billion in the past. But even though that previous project cost $2 billion to build, there really isn't all that much there. The entire population of the town is about 35,000 people, and they built things like a mall and a state-of-the-art technology complex that's all powered by renewable energies. But if we just look at it on Google Maps, it's hard to call this a real city. And if we look at Akon's plans for Akon City, it is much more ambitious, where Akon plans to use futuristic designs in its architecture, as well as incorporating naturalistic materials and nature all throughout the city. The entire city is going to be broken up into different districts. For example, the African Village District, which is going to consist of a bunch of different resorts, and it's more of a tourist destination. It will even feature an open-air market and a restaurant that looks like it's straight out of Avatar. There's also the Entertainment District, which will feature a casino as well as a stadium where they could host sports events or concerts. There's the Residential and Office District, which is made up of giant Wakanda-looking buildings. There's the Health and Safety District, which will incorporate hospitals, police, and fire. There's the Education District, which is going to have a full college campus complete with 3 separate college buildings. There's the Technology District, which is kind of like their version of Silicon Valley brought to Senegal. And then last up, there's the Senwood District, which will include buildings such as the Media Tower, Akon Tower, and different filming studios. And once it's built, Akon Tower is going to be the tallest building in all of Senegal. But as exciting and interesting as the physical architecture looks, what I think is even more interesting is the technology running their economy. They plan for the entire city to run on a cryptocurrency known as Akoin, and they plan to get special tax privileges from the government so that they can actually run their city on that coin. If they are successful in doing this, they're going to not only create a new city, but an entirely new type of economy. Of course, there's also a lot of risk associated with that. If we look at Nigeria, for example, for a long time, Nigeria actually had the 3rd highest trading volume in terms of cryptos in the entire world. That is, until the Nigerian central bank started cracking down on crypto exchanges and declared them illegal. And Senegal already had a much smaller crypto presence than Nigeria. In fact, the central bank in Dakar has declared cryptos illegal. Now, Akoin is currently being piloted at the Mwale Medical and Technology City, which is the same city that was built by that investor we talked about earlier. But that city is in Kenya, which as a country has no major public crypto stance, which is very different from Senegal. And with the central bank in Senegal making cryptos illegal, that's going to make it really hard to get them to approve an entire city run on top of crypto. Now, you might think that it would be difficult for the central bank to actually impose restrictions on crypto, considering it's completely decentralized, but in Senegal, the main way that people actually access the internet is through mobile phones, and those phones get their network access through central carriers. Those carriers could have restrictions imposed on them by the central bank in Senegal, which in turn could pressure those same carriers to completely block crypto from their networks. But even if they do figure out crypto regulations in the country, there's still the question of funding, because $6 billion is not cheap. Now, Akon does claim that they've already raised $4 billion, but he won't reveal where that money has come from. And just as an example, Akon was planning to build a youth center in the same part of Senegal, which is actually separate from this project, and him and a local politician laid the first stone for that youth center a few years ago. And now if you go to where that youth center is supposed to be, there's a big field with a single stone still sitting there. Now, that's not to say that Akon completely gives up on all his past projects. In fact, he's had a huge amount of success in the country in the past. He also launched the Akon Lighting Africa project in 2014, a solar power construction project that is now working in 14 countries and has reached its goal of providing power to over 1 million households across the continent. So Akon has previous experience working at a serious scale getting these kind of projects underway, but at the same time, he hasn't worked on a city in the past or a city of this particular magnitude. So is this actually realistic is a question that's still up in the air. In fact, when asked whether or not he thought this project was realistic, the architect said that he designed the project in anticipation of future inventions, some of which might land 25 years in the future, including flying cars. So even though that architect is clearly very optimistic about where the future is going to go, there's still the fact that people in Senegal tend to really like Akon. There was a quote from Adoum Webigu, I probably completely butchered that, where he said that there's a general fear that cryptos are run by scammers and that investing in them is tantamount to throwing your money into the sea. But Akoin was introduced by our own son, Akon, who loves the Senegalese and who wants us to prosper. So even though this area of cryptos in the past has a very negative connotation, Akon's good name in the country might be enough to make up for that. But while this is all just an experiment in crypto in a tiny town that's being designed from scratch, what about similar experiments that are going on in cities that have already reached massive scale, including Miami and New York City? Miami has long been called the Magic City, but recently they've been less focused on magic and more focused on technology, with their young new mayor, Francis Suarez, extremely focused on making Miami competitive in the tech scene and winning over entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley to his city. We all know Silicon Valley and San Francisco as the birthplace of the modern tech company, but recently more and more companies and entrepreneurs have left that area in favor of other cities instead. Elon Musk famously left a few years ago to move to Texas, and HP moved their headquarters from Silicon Valley to Houston, even though HP's presence there back in the 1930s is partly why the region is called Silicon Valley in the first place. But while the trend out of San Francisco has been going on for a while, the move to Miami is more recent. In fact, one place we can point to as sort of the start of this exodus toward Miami comes from a tweet from a venture capitalist who said, "Okay guys, hear me out. What if we move Silicon Valley to Miami?" And then the mayor of Miami retweeted, "How can I help?" That tweet quickly got 2.3 million impressions and kind of took on a life of its own as it caught this sort of secular wave that was hitting everybody's minds at the same time. We need a new Silicon Valley. Miami was really set up as the perfect big US city to be the birthplace of a new crypto movement. In fact, in November 2021, Miami's mayor agreed to have his entire paycheck paid to him in Bitcoin. And the particular crypto we're talking about in this case is a coin called MiamiCoin, which was launched on August 3rd, 2021 by an organization known as CityCoins, which is a loose organization of people who run a platform for cities to create their own cryptocurrency. MiamiCoin was built on the Stacks protocol, which is essentially running on top of the Bitcoin network and adds smart contract capabilities onto Bitcoin. So the same way that Ethereum is highly differentiated from Bitcoin by the fact that it can run NFTs, create DAOs, run smart contracts, the Stacks protocol brings that same functionality over to Bitcoin. The other thing that makes MiamiCoin interesting is the way that rewards are paid out for mining. For mining in normal Bitcoin, you get paid out all the profit for doing the work of mining the coin. However, with MiamiCoin, any amount that you mine in Bitcoin, you keep 70% of it, and then 30% of it goes to a wallet that is going to be owned by the city, in this case Miami. So if the value of MiamiCoin keeps going up over time, that's a win-win for the miners and for the city, who basically gets paid for doing nothing. Of course, there's also a pretty clear downside with MiamiCoin. While theoretically it can enable the creation of smart contracts, it has a very small development community that's nothing like the Ethereum community, and so the actual implementation of creating dApps on the network isn't really happening. And at least in part because of that, there's no real value creation happening here. They say on the website that MiamiCoin helps with improving and programming the Magic City, but currently MiamiCoin just operates like a slightly less efficient Bitcoin. If I was a miner, why wouldn't I spend my time mining Bitcoin where I could get 100% of the profits versus mining MiamiCoin where I have to give away 30% of the profit? If I wanted to, I could just mine Bitcoin and then donate that money myself if I was feeling charitable. On top of that, MiamiCoin's price is down around 95% from its all all-time high. So clearly interest peaked initially and then has been waning pretty much ever since then. But while the use case for MiamiCoin, at least right now, isn't all that clear, that kind of ignores the use cases for blockchains beyond currency, namely the use of smart contracts. Smart contracts, like those that are available with MiamiCoin, let you create applications on top of the network. One kind of application you can create is something known as a DAO, or Decentralized Autonomous Organization, where essentially you can set up a set of rules and then anybody within that organization will have those rules enforced on them automatically by the blockchain. Now, why might this be useful? Well, let's say, for example, that 10% of the money that goes to Miami sets aside into a DAO and says anybody in this organization can pick from a certain set of projects to contribute to. Maybe you're interested in supporting public schools. Maybe you're more interested in parks. Maybe you care about beaches. Whatever you want to contribute to, you can vote within the DAO for where you would like your funds to go to. So rather than just having a binary yes or no choice on a particular issue, you can pick how much money you want to go to support a particular cause. And then cities would probably have some kind of cutoff where they decide whether or not they have enough funding to complete the project or if they have to roll that over to a different project. And we've seen some less technical versions of this kind of voting working in the past. In Colorado, for example, most of the state budget is determined by the Joint Budget Committee, but there's a certain percent of the money every year, around $40 million, that is set aside for politicians to determine certain bills that they want to fund. Now, in the past, in say 2017 and before that, party leaders would generally pick what they wanted to fund. So whoever was in charge of your party basically got to choose, and then they would be lobbied a bunch by their different party members. It was extremely political and extremely inefficient. In 2018, they tried a different system where every party member would vote on what bills they wanted to fund. The problem was all the bills kind of got around the same amount of votes, so they didn't really gain any new information on what needed funding the most. Then in 2019, they tried a new system called quadratic voting, inspired by the free market. Let's say that there's 25 bills that you can vote on and you're given 25 tokens. Now you can take each of those tokens and put in a vote for each individual bill if you want to. Or if you want to, you can put multiple tokens toward a single bill. But there's a catch. Once you put a second token toward a bill, it's twice as expensive to put it there. If you put a third token, it's again doubling how expensive it is. So if you had 3 bills you wanted to vote for, you could just put 1 token for each bill. But if you just wanted to vote for 1 bill, you could put down 1 token for your first vote, 2 tokens for your second vote, and then 4 tokens for your third vote. And the amount of tokens you have to put down would increase exponentially with each subsequent vote. So only people who are very, very committed to a certain bill would be willing to risk all their money on a single one. And it worked. It gave the politicians a much clearer idea of what bills had the most support and which ones should get the most funding. And I could see the exact same thing happening in a blockchain automatically occurring, where you just put your votes down and the system handles everything automatically with no need for interference from a politician. But while Miami hasn't quite reached the level where they have a DAO automatically allocating funding to different projects within the city, there's another major US city that is trying to muscle into the crypto space, and they are desperate to prove that they are the next 21st century tech hub, the Big Apple, or New York City. New York's new mayor as of January 2022 is named Eric Adams, and he is also very bullish on crypto. He agreed to have his first paycheck paid in a mix of both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Maybe the mayor was mad that blockchain.com decided to leave New York City in favor of Miami, or he was worried that New York City as the financial hub of the country was at risk of losing that place as cryptocurrencies gained in popularity. Either way, he's tried to take a very strong stance in support of crypto, although he's been hamstrung somewhat by regulations within his city. For example, he made the announcement that he wanted his first 3 paychecks to be paid in blockchain and Ethereum, just like the mayor of Miami, only New York regulations prevented them from being able to pay him in blockchain directly. So they paid him in cash, and then he personally had to convert it to cryptos. And unfavorable regulations weren't the only limiting factor for New York. The other factor is that there are high state taxes in New York, especially compared to the zero income tax in Florida, and there's the fact that it's just twice as expensive to live in New York City as it is to live in a city like Miami. But at the same time, New York did have some things going for it. It was, after all, the financial hub of the country, and there were a lot of good universities located in the region. All these different factors made the CityCoins community decide to launch NYC Coin in November of 2021, choosing New York over cities like Austin, Texas. Now, NYC Coin worked exactly the same as MiamiCoin because it was created by the same people. Again, 30% of any coin that was mined would go to New York City, only they weren't officially associated with with the city. So someone from the city would have to actually claim the wallet that they're putting all this money into. And if they never actually showed up to claim the wallet, CityCoins doesn't really say what would happen. Would that money just disappear? Would it sit there forever? Or would it in some way end up back in the community? They're not completely sure about that. That being said, we know that NYC Coin does have some support, at least from Eric Adams in NYC. After all, he retweeted their announcement that they had picked New York City as the next coin for CityCoins. At the same time, I think it's an interesting choice that the CityCoins community decided to pick New York City over a different city in the country, like say Austin, Texas. Part of CityCoins' reasoning for choosing New York was Amazon recently announced an office hub with 25,000 employees in the Long Island City neighborhood of Queens. Only the website fails to mention the fact that that entire project was canceled after Amazon faced intense backlash from the local community in New York City. So they didn't build anything at all. Now, NYC Coin is down in price less than MiamiCoin from its peak, although that's because at their peak, they barely broke 0.5 cents per coin, and now they're down to 0.1 cent per coin. So what do I think of these kind of projects like Akon, MiamiCoin, and NYC Coin, and would I personally invest in them? Well, when it comes to CityCoins, I am very unlikely to invest in them. First of all, the fact that a mayor retweeted your tweet announcing you were going to give them free money does not mean the city supports you. They're basically saying, yeah, if you want to give us 30% of all your money, we'll take it, but we're not necessarily going to make regulation any easier for you. We're not going to put any funding into your project, and you're probably never going to get any kind of official recognition that you even exist. The fact is, for a politician like Eric Adams, it's easy for him to get all the public praise of being associated with cryptos without putting in any actual effort behind the project. Personally, I think unless the smart contracts running on MiamiCoin and NYC Coin actually do something, maybe they actually have DAOs running on top of them, or a city at least officially endorses one of these coins, I'm not super interested. Although I do think MiamiCoin is probably a little more likely to reach that state than NYC Coin. As for Akoin, it's down around 85% in price from its peak to a fully diluted market cap of $35 million. So more than double MiamiCoin at $15 million and way higher than NYC's $1 million non-diluted market cap. I actually think what Akon is doing in Senegal is more interesting than what a lot of US cities are doing, and in a lot of ways, it's a lot more noble than what these politicians are doing, because really there's nothing in it for Akon. It's also way more ambitious, and I think that more than likely it is also going to fail. At the same time, projects like Akon City could inspire or hint at the future of projects that could actually succeed if the right people got behind them. People like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Ultimately, I think the ideas behind these cryptos is much more powerful than their actual implementation. The fact that people on Twitter are seeing these kinds of things going on, even if what's actually happening isn't that exciting, I think is the more interesting thing overall. The fact is, the next generation of movers and shakers could be witnessing these events happening right now and making much bigger plans for the future that could actually play out in the long run. Or maybe someone watching this video right now is the person who's eventually going to make one of these projects that actually succeeds. So if you are that person, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.